Got
Here
it.
recording in progress. There we go. Yeah, it was just I've done presentations for different clubs around the United States and Canada. I think this is the first. Farthest was one I did at like 2 in the morning for Hawaii one time, but my first for California. So happy to check that one off the box. Thanks for having me. I have to point out on the slide that it says Bob Kloss, EAS Certified Master Beekeeper, presented by me. Um, This is Bob Kloss, and it has to be said out loud right from the beginning that this is Bob's presentation. Bob went through some medical situation
Uh,
this winter, and unfortunately, he's still recovering from heart surgery and some other things. I talked to him just yesterday on the phone. He sounds really, really good, but he asked me to step in on this. So Bob's a beekeeper in a town nearby to me. He's also an EAS certified master beekeeper, super busy um, in our association and does queen rearing with me. This tells you how smart Bob is. He's a sharp guy. He did 31 years in the pharmaceutical industry, and he was a chemist and worked in different plants he's just savant smart. And he and I went to Malawi, Africa, and have done so many different things. And to say we're friends in beekeeping is an understatement. The two of us are like Mutt and Jeff, and I'm happy to bring you Bob's presentation. Bob wrote the presentation, and I built the presentation for him, so I'm really familiar with it. I'll try and do it as much justice as possible. And at any point, if you have questions, feel free. I'm pretty versed on the topic itself. This is me. As you heard Chris say, I'm a beekeeper since 2008. This is my home yard, right out behind my garage. One of the things I'm known for is I love alternative hives. And you look in this picture, you see there's polystyrene hives, there's a top bar hive, there's a Layens hive, I have a Ware hive, and I like to experiment with different types of beekeeping equipment. So as we teach, we're able to give a lot of information to people who have strange pieces of equipment and can't find good information on that. I work day job as an IT administrator for a printing company, very similar to something like Vistaprint, if you're familiar with them, but for corporations. And as you heard, I do the Beekeeper's Corner podcast. I also do something called managed mentoring. It's a mentoring system here for the Northeast. You can go to managementoring.com. It takes you through all the stages of
somebody's
wanting
sumakinig.
to be a beekeeper. And we always say, I want bees in the box, bees in the box full grown, bees full grown to bees overwintered and follows through 2 years. Why struggle? And the whole point of this is we taught this for our local association. And when COVID came, we ended up moving it to snackable short video style format so we could do it online. And I'm well versed with doing Zoom. And now we run this program and we opened it up because other people found out about it and asked. And we have people coming in from North Carolina and Oklahoma and Canada and other places to that. So managementoring.com is another thing that I do. But we're here for apitherapy. And what I wanted to say to you is this slide presentation is available for free on the website, bkcorner.org. I was saying at the beginning, I always make all my presentations available, and I have Bob's presentation or permission to share this out. You can go to BK Corner and look right on the top menu for presentations. You'll see this one and other ones that I've given over time. That being said, let's go. This is what we're going to cover: apitherapy, bee venom, honey, propolis, pollen bee bread, and so on. You can see the different titles, and we'll start with introduction of apitherapy if you're not versed as to what it is. So let's talk about what is apitherapy. And you can see the picture there. That's a bee sting. That's what most people think apitherapy is. But the fact of the matter is, apitherapy is more than that. It's venom, it's pollen, it's royal jelly, it's propolis, it's products of the hive. An alternative holistic therapy. Uh, the one thing that is interesting about this in the United States is there's no medicine you can go down to the pharmacy and buy in that context. Very limited amount of products. There are some things made with bee venom. There's some things, obviously, medicinal grade honey and such, but the general principle of apitherapy is more holistic and done in the sphere of beekeepers and different folks who have studied the craft. And there is a large practice of people who practice apitherapy, but they're very difficult to find and connect with. So that being said, if you dig around, you can find people who do different things with products of the hive. It's not medical. It's really holistic. And the one thing that I learned from the beginning, we have someone who has passed and have a picture of him coming up. He taught us that it's not without risks. And it's it's more of a feel of someone who understands the practice and applies it through time and experience and through exposure through others who have passed the craft down. But when you look at it from the perspective of how it goes, it's not something you're going to go get to a doctor's office, at least here in the United States. And so this is the gentleman. His name was Tom Foscaldo, and he always had someone who wanted to get apitherapy sign this form. And it would just basically say you're at your own risk. You understand that you're being stung. You understand that you can have allergic reactions and so on. And he was a really interesting character, this guy. Uh, but but it was really a great introduction. He had beehives that he would have the individual bees come up into a chamber where he could pull one bee at a time, take it over, bring it over, and sting you. And in this was a meeting that we had at our Beekeepers Association. He actually did apitherapy and stung people in the meeting who signed the form and then got the stings as part of a process that he covered in the meeting. So again, it's not without risks, but guess what? We're all beekeepers. We get stung all the time. We're past that part. And if you know people, and someone was saying earlier that they sting themselves, yeah, I have problems with my fingers and so on, as you'll hear in the presentation, and I get stung all the time, and I really feel like it's a benefit. So at least venom therapy is something that you're familiar with now. Okay, who knows what this is? Anybody recognize this?
It looks like
This,
it's
yeah, what's it from? Go ahead, Chris, say it.
yeah, I can't think of the name of the movie.
Here, I'll help you out.
Yes.
Eat,
Yeah,
Pray, Love.
yeah.
I happen to know Elizabeth Gilbert. She lives in a town nearby us, and we do the printing of some of her stuff, including her books, Eat, Pray, Love, and stuff. Ketut Layer was the key figure. He's this guy in here, and he's a holistic medicine man. And if you want a kind of a sense of what it is to be a medicine, read the book, watch the movie, and you'll understand how people in different cultures see holistic medicine in a completely different light. They don't see it as kind of a voodoo thing that's really weird and strange. And if you think about it from the perspective of the United States, it's unusual here, right? Especially as it's related to apitherapy. If you go back in time, Europe, Asia continent, and other areas, holistic has a history. In the United States, they brought bees over and they brought quote unquote modern medicine. They didn't have bees here. They didn't learn holistic hundreds of years back to the Greek and Roman times in the United States from the Indians because there were no bees here. Now, there is argument now that there were native bees in the United States, but the white man's fly was brought over in 1622 by the English and dropped off on the Virginia shores. And we didn't have apitherapy here. People didn't have it as a practice. They brought it with them. So if you think about it, the history of apitherapy is just as far back as you can imagine, 6,000 years. Egypt, China, Greece, Rome, they knew about this. This is Hippocrates. He's the father of medicine. And he used bee venom to treat arthritis and other joint problems back then. So you could see outside of the United States, obviously, it has a long and detailed history. It started to become more mainstream and more known to individuals, especially in Europe, through Philip Turk, Australian physician. He published a book. And if you, this is a Kevin moment. If you've ever listened to the podcast, you know I'm inclined to stop for a moment and pause on something. So my Kevin moment is, did Langstroth invent the hive? No, but he's the one that wrote the book. Dzierzhin and uh, Huber and other people designed the concepts, but Langstroth wrote the hive and the honeybee, and he patented, and now we call it the Langstroth hive. If you think about grafting, if any of you do queen rearing, we call it the Doolittle method. Doolittle learned how to graft larva out of a frame and put it into a cup from other people, but he wrote the book. And in the same way, apitherapy became more established back in the 1800s in mainstream society because Turk wrote the book. When you move forward to the 1930s, you have Bogdan Beck. He's someone who in New York City, now it brought it over to the United States, wrote the Bible of bee venom therapy. He started taking the information that was available abroad and bringing it to the United States. And a lot of his work was centered on rheumatoid arthritis and the benefits of bee venom therapy. You can still get this book. Now, Bogdan Beck is considered one of the principal people in the apitherapy world. But when you look at it, another person who wrote the approachable book is Charles Mraz. Mraz met Beck in 1931, and then this beekeeper who is in Middlebury, Vermont, traveled the world promoting apitherapy, wrote books on it. His family still operates a big bee business in that zone. And most of what people know about apitherapy, even in today's world, came from these principal people who built the pillars that we understand. So apitherapy is not only about bee stings, and it can be applied in multiple ways. You could put it on topically. We obviously eat honey for its medicinal benefits. And of course, you can inject it, sting it, and apply it in different manners. So let's talk about bee venom, which is probably the poster child of apitherapy and what most people know as bee venom therapy. That's what they equate with apitherapy. One of the key things is bee venom therapy is considered an alternative medicine. You can't, again, go down to your local doctor and say, I want this. What's interesting is it has been deeply studied. There are clinical trials, and there are uh, plenty of medical established literature and information that establishes its street cred. So the one question in commentary that Bob will tell you, and I worked for a pharmaceutical too prior to my current job, you can't monetize it. Pharmaceutical companies can't take bee venom and make products out of it, so to speak. So therefore, there's no bee venom you can buy from a pharmacy. Uh, there's a lot of holistic medicines that are known to work, but pharmaceuticals can't manufacture them. They can't make a profit on it. They can't have exclusivity. So some of these things that actually do work, have clinical trials to back them up, are not mainstream. And bee venom therapy is one of them. If you look there, there's a number of chemicals. And bee venom therapy and bee venom specifically is highly studied. And what we're going to do is talk about the different chemicals that are involved, with melittin being one of the main ones. So this is the one that gets all the headlines. 50% of honeybee venom, thereabouts, is melittin. And if you look there, it tells you it triggers immune response and anti-inflammatory. I want to stop for a minute and talk about when you get stung, what happens to your body. You get stung and you go, ouch, it hurts because you've injected a foreign protein into your body and your body responds to it through the nerve receptors. Maybe you'll swell. The swelling is liquid coming to the site in order to dilute the toxins. Maybe you'll feel heat. Your body is going to create heat in that zone to cook the foreign substances out. Maybe you feel itching. A lot of blood flow comes to that area and tries to flush whatever that is out and through your system to get it out of the system. So a typical normal reaction, swelling, itching, heat, and so on, is a reaction to the immune response and anti-inflammatory parts of the injection of bee venom into your body. There's other parts to it. And I put these names in here because Bob is a great chemist. I am not. Phospholipase. I make fun of it. I know how to pronounce it, but it's just one of those things where all these chemical names, you're going to see it through here. It's word salad. Just bear with me as I go through these, right? But um, as you look, this is the immune system activation, this product. And then you have adapalene. This is anti-inflammatory response and pain relief. So there's all different mix of things inside bee venom, apamine. And these are only a few of them, but you can see that they have some key roles. Nerve transmission. So they parlay the different aspects of the bee venom for different therapies because they behave and act and perform in specific ways. You see, this one is a nerve transmission has led to use in neurodegenerative disorders, Parkinson's and MS. So rheumatoid arthritis and MS are two very popular, well-known treatments for bee sting therapy, people who have those conditions. There is, of course, histamine and dopamine as part of what is in bee venom. You think about histamine and dopamine, they stimulate the pain pathways that trigger healing and modulate chronic pain perception over time. These are used in everyday medicine in different forms, and they're part of venom. And I will say to you, as a beekeeper, when you get stung, yes, it hurts. But if you're like me, maybe you have a little arthritis or you've been having some problem in your knee, maybe you have gout, things like that, you sting yourself. I promise you that after taking a number of stings in the bee yard, I think I do feel better. And I don't know that that's just psychological. I really believe it plays a difference. And as a beekeeper, sometimes you're like, man, I need to go get stung. I don't know. That's a kind of crazy thing, right? But so histamine and dopamine, they play a role. They're only in trace amounts, but they are important aspects of it. Neurological conditions like Parkinson's and such. If you listen to people who talk about one of the other reasons why venom therapy is not as popular is because venom therapy is complex. It's not melittin only. It's melittin and the combination synergistically. And modern medicine has yet to unravel how it actually works. And there's no money in studying it, but clinical trials could show that it is effective. What's it effective for? This is just a short list of things that people apply it for. Specifically, rheumatoid arthritis. There's signs of people who have a rash. Maybe I don't know about you, but here in New Jersey, we have Lyme's disease like crazy. We're the tick capital of the world. And you might develop a rash on your arm where you got bit by a tick. And if you sting yourself there, in a couple days, that rash goes away. Where if you didn't, you'd have to go to the doctor and they immediately give you something to counter it. They see a tick bite and they don't hesitate. They give you antibiotics. Sting yourself in that zone, and it typically clears itself out. There has been experimentation in COVID during COVID times in HIV for bee venom therapy, and it's found to be effective. I'm sure, as I would imagine, that a lot of you have seen information about bee venom therapy in cancers. Breast cancer, ovarian, prostate, melanoma, and lung. If you put bee venom therapy in with cells of breast cancer, kills it right away. It'll kill cancer cells without much difficulty. Now, I used to work for the company Bristol Myers Squibb, which is a well-known cancer. They have Opdivo and other products. One of the keys to modern cancer therapy is they can target cancer genes by locking on to the proteins. And then when they send the medicine in, unlike when you get zapped doing chemotherapy that wipes out all the cells, that goes directly after specific cancer cells. They can target them. The difficulty with bee venom therapy and using venom is they don't know how to target the cells with it. But if they could, it would wipe out all the cancer cells. But it also wipes out the good cells. It's more like chemo. If you could get it and put it right to breast cancer nodules, it would have quite an impact on that. And there is some work being done to try and figure all that out. So who knows? Maybe in the age of AI and advanced science and drugs and so on, some of these compounds will unlock a way for bee venom therapy to become more mainstream. In the real world, if you know who the YouTuber is, Bob Binney, and there's a QR code where you can go watch a video, he talked about having a terrible case of shingles. And I know a beekeeper local to me who had the same thing. And they found relief in stinging themselves with bee venom therapy to resolve shingles. And Bob Kloss, who wrote this presentation, he has terrible gout in his feet and in his fingers. His knuckles are all swollen and such on. It's really funny is gout plagues him all winter long. And then as soon as he gets into his bees in spring, it starts to clear up and it goes away. And he sometimes goes out to his colonies in the middle of winter and stings himself to take care of some of his gout situation. So there are real world people using this as just regular beekeepers. Let's talk a little bit about honey, switching gears. So we all know that honey is amazing. What's in it? Sugar, water, proteins, amino acids. There's all different kinds of sugars, not just glucose and sucrose, fructose. And the interesting thing is that it varies. We all know that through the season, the bees visit different plants and the constituents in our honey varies. And some of them have other compounds that may be available in your zone in California that we would never see here in New Jersey and so on. So not only is it the honey varies through the season, but it varies by location, terroir. There's protein in honey and there's amino acids. And one of the things that's interesting about honey inside the hive is as they break it down using the glands that they have in their head, the hypopharyngeal gland and so on, it emits different compounds, one of them being um, hydrogen peroxide, which creates the immunity inside the hive. And the same thing happens to humans when you consume it. There's vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants, obviously, in honey. So when you have the opportunity to place bees on honey versus sugar water, honey is usually better, depending on how much ash content there is in it. But from that perspective, it's the same thing for human beings. We can benefit from all of the goodness in honey. And of course, as beekeepers, I don't need to elaborate that for you. Honey is antimicrobial. That's attributed to the low moisture. Microbes can't survive. It has a low pH and is acidic. And so microbes can't take hold. We've all heard the story that you can go into the tombs of Egypt and find the honey and it is still viable. Doesn't taste good, doesn't look good, but still viable. Glucose oxidase is the part that I talked about that converts to hydrogen peroxide. It's part of the immune system in the hive, and it's also good for us as human beings. Antibacterial. Now, antimicrobial, antibacterial. I want you to note how many times, if this were a drinking game and you were taking a shot, you'd be blitzed by the end of this. And they're taking all of this from the plants in nature. And so really you're getting the botany benefits in the products of the hive that the bees are bringing back to you. So honey is antimicrobial. Now, again, that depends on type of bee, what they're foraging on, and so on, right? But there's different constituents in it, Mg as it talks of. What do you use this for? Burn dressings, wounds. In the wars, Vietnam War, Korean War, and so on, medicinal honey was something that was used extensively. It's still used in hospitals. And you can, yes, go to the pharmacy and buy medical honey. We all know how good it is as a cough suppressant. And if you have an injury, cut on your finger, spread a little honey on it, and then put a Band-Aid on it. Or you could put propolis tincture, which I'll talk about. One of the key things is it's used in a lot of ways for both humans and in veterinary situations for hard to heal wounds, leg ulcers, burns, gangrene, and things like that. This is a Manuka honey. It has all the headlines. I have friends who are beekeepers in New Zealand, and it's almost like the gold rush there. And Manuka honey is the poster child for this, but there's an interesting thing, and I'm curious as you've ever heard of it. Has anybody heard of lanternfly honey? And you can go into Zoom and pop into the chat and put a note there to everyone. Um, we have lanternflies. Lanternflies came from Asia. They were brought in, and of all the places, they ended up in Reading, Pennsylvania, and they've spread across the eastern seaboard. Lanternflies go to tree of heaven and different other plants, and it's very similar to a forest honey from aphids. They're taking the liquids out of the trees and bringing them in, and they're finding that when they examine, it's a nasty honey, funny stuff. When you eat it, it's fudgy. It tastes like dates and plums and it's really funky, funky stuff. But it has the same medicinal, and sometimes they're rating it even higher than Manuka honey. So we got all of this in New Jersey when it came here. Um, we were not sure what to do with it. People were like, closing their hives off. They didn't want it. Then they found out how good it was. And now it's being sold at a premium, just like Manuka. We have it all across the East Coast. It's in New Jersey, it's in Pennsylvania, it's in New York, it's down to Washington, D.C., and further north almost to Boston. And there's just something different about the constituents in these honey from a medicinal standpoint. They're far better for you. This is lanternfly, if you've never seen one. They're very pretty, but they're terrible. They eat so many of the plants. And when they came here, there was no predators for them. But all of a sudden, something figured out that they were pretty tasty and they started eating them, and we haven't seen them that much. I'm going to talk about propolis. Propolis is something that is even more well established beyond bee stings and honey in common everyday holistic medicine. Greeks, Romans, Persians, Egyptians, and others, they knew about propolis. Why? Because they kept bees. And when they kept bees, they realized that the bees were using propolis, antimicrobial, antibacterial properties, and they figured out that they could use it for various ways. They even used it for embalming. Propolis comes from pro, which is before at the entrance, and polis, which is city, of the city. And really what it meant is protect the city. That's kind of where the name comes from. And where does propolis come from? It comes from a large number of trees. It's a resin. And you can kind of get a sense of this if you go out into the woods, grab a tree, and break a branch, and look at the liquid that oozes from the branch. That's very similar to what you might find bees harvesting for propolis. It's the natural wound medicine that exudes from the plant to keep it from dying and having problems, and also to heal it. It has 300 plus compounds. And what's interesting is your propolis is not the same as my propolis, is not the same as the propolis in Brazil. Our propolis is brownish. Propolis in Brazil might be red. The propolis I saw in Malawi was black. It comes from whatever the plants are that they're using. And like we talked about applying it for cancer using venom, propolis is that way too, but they can't figure out the magic propolis because they have to travel around and figure out which plants. They're trying to reverse engineer which propolis is the right one that is so medicinal. And there's so many different kinds that it's very difficult to sort that out. And propolis is a mix of resins, beeswax, pollen, essential oils, and you can imagine every one of them has different formulations, so to speak. Where does it come from? These are common trees: poplar, ash, willow, birch. Birch is a highly common area or common tree for propolis to be sought from. Pine tar, so to speak. That's a picture of bees collecting propolis in my yard. I have some oak trees. I didn't know that oak was involved in that as much, but they were physically pulling it, and I could see the propolis on the bees' corbicula or their pollen baskets. You can buy propolis in different forms. Beekeepers sell it, they freeze it, they smash it, they make powders out of it, they harvest it, and some people take it on a daily basis in a pill form. This is one product, as you can see, that you can potentially go down to the grocery store and look around and find. My wife has cancer. She was diagnosed a year and a half ago. And when she talked to her doctor, she was having gut difficulties from all the medicines and such. And now she's in remission. But she told the doctor she was eating propolis every day, and the doctor said, good, that's a good thing to do. It's really important that you do that. That's a good product. We were surprised that he knew what it was. But she takes just a pinch of it, about the size of a pea, and eats a little bit of it every day. And every time I'm out at the hives, I collect them. You have to be careful. I have to say this out loud with any of these products that if you're allergic to bees, you could potentially have reactions to them. Obviously, you don't want to get stung if you're allergic to bee stings. You could be allergic to pollen and take that through propolis or other things. So, be careful with this stuff as you do it. That's why Tom Fuscaldo had the risk document that he had you sign, because you could have allergic reactions, including anaphylactic shock and such. So, whether it's propolis, honey, or any of these, just use a little common sense with it. Another Kevin moment. When I was in high school, I had warts all over my hands. It was hideous. I didn't have one or two. I was covered with them. It looked like chicken pox. I found, through the doctor told me, that there's a motherwort. It was on my ring finger. And what she told me is if you kill the motherwort, all the other warts will go away. So I did the Michael Jackson thing. I took a piece of propolis, a pinch, and I put it on the wart and I put a Band-Aid on it. I went to work every day for like a month and a half. I killed that motherwort and all the warts went away on my hands. Absolutely gone, all of them. And that's the only thing I did. I used to use Compound W. I went at a point to, this was the most painful experience. They took nitrogen and froze a wart and scooped it out with like an ice cream scooper. It was so painful. And I said, I'm never going to do that again. So when I became a beekeeper and learned about this, I put propolis on it and it all went away. And I've never had any warts since. Anti-inflammatory, antioxidant. We know how good it is in the colony, and it's good for you too. Um, when you look at it, it comes back to this. It all depends on the propolis you're getting. But general principle is all propolis is pretty darn beneficial. Some of it's more beneficial than others. Some of the stuff that they found in the rainforest down in the Amazon is like uber amazing. But everyday propolis tested from any beehive has all these properties. And you could see here anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, antimicrobial. It's used to prevent fungal growth and so on. And again, it comes right from plants. It's the botany of the plants. What can you use it for? All of the things, colds, flu, sore throat. Propolis is a really well-known holistic medicine for teeth, gums, cavities, cold sores. People use it for herpes. It is known, if you take it in a specific way, to lower your blood pressure. I said warts. Ulcers is another one. When you eat this and it goes down into your digestive tract, most things get absolutely destroyed by the acids, which are extremely powerful. But for whatever reason, propolis going down into your digestive tract does have an impact for something like ulcers. It can help with other things. Seasonal allergies is one that most people don't think about, but propolis is mixed a lot with pollen and other constituents from plants. And specifically, one of the things, you can eat honey and you get pollen in the honey. But when you see ragweed, you generally don't have ragweed pollen, but ragweed gets into the plant material for propolis. And so if you eat a little propolis, you might get some of that. And again, it too has some of those properties to kill cancer cells and things like that. Then we'll move on to pollen, bee bread, and royal jelly. Pollen, we all know what it looks like. That's a pollen trap on the bottom that I just used recently for gaining some pollen to do some queen rearing. They're really pretty simple devices. That's called a front porch one, where the bees pass through a little plastic filter that scrapes the pollen off and it just falls down and you can collect it. So if you ever wanted to collect pollen for yourself, it's not that complicated. You can find these in bee catalogs. One of the things you could do is take that frame that's in the middle, cut it out, and take a chopstick and just poke all the pollen pellets out. Freeze it, and the comb gets really brittle, and it's really easy to separate it. And if you spend just 15 minutes, you can get bee bread, fermented, processed by the bees with additional honey and other constituents, the enzymes that they put into it. It's superfood, as you can tell by what's in there on the slide. I don't think I need to tell you how much is in plant material. If you want to talk about which botany thing is the highest, it's probably the pollen. There's all kinds of phenols and other things in it. And here we go again. Anti-carcinogenic, anti-atherosclerotic, yeah, that word. Antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, antimicrobial, and so on, right? Again, plant materials just keep popping up here as to their benefits. What can you use pollen for? Of course, you take a little bit of pollen to solve your allergies. You could use it to reduce cholesterol. You can use it to solve liver damage. There are certain therapeutic ways to use it in the context of restoring liver function. Diabetes, hypoglycemic. One of the things about the way you process pollen when you eat it is how slowly it breaks down in the digestive system. Some of it doesn't break down at all because it's just so difficult. But it's also mixed a lot of times when you get it with, especially if you're eating bee bread, with propolis and with honey. So you're getting all three of them in bee bread. So what is bee bread? Look at the cross section of that. That's kind of cool, isn't it? You could see the different versions of pollen that are stacked on top of each other. The bees are using their quote unquote saliva, which is enzymes produced by their glands, mixed with nectar and propolis. This is just a stat that it has 27 essential minerals, proteins, amino acids, fatty acids, enzymes. It's really a superfood, bee bread. Similar to using pollen, liver, blood, digestion. Because of the energy you get, it's used for stress, fatigue, well-being. And there it is, antibacterial, antimicrobial, anti-inflammatory. So again, from the plants. This is not a product that's very common in the United States. When I was in Italy, the beekeepers there had royal jelly. I went to a hotel for work and I asked them, could you find me a beekeeper? And they sent me to this beekeeper who didn't speak English. And they didn't tell him I was coming. I spent a day with him out in his bee yard working bees in Italy. And because we were so versed as beekeepers, we didn't need to talk. And one of the things he was doing that day was queen rearing. And I went into his honey house and he opened the refrigerator and took out a jar of royal jelly and he was priming it and he was eating it as he was going. I thought that was kind of cool. right? People eat it. It's more common in Western or Eastern cultures, China, Japan, the islands. We don't see this at all here. If you go into an Asian grocery store, you can often find little shot glasses in a package of royal jelly. How they get that much is beyond me, but you could see that secreted from the bees and just it's the food of the gods as far as creating queens. So when humans consume it, it's amazing for you. It is less studied because it's harder to come by than honey or propolis. But from that perspective, there are people who believe that this is the product that is the fountain of youth and beauty, and that it has such restorative qualities that people will pay top dollar for royal jelly. These are the different things that they say you could use it for. I don't know how it helps with obesity or high cholesterol or so on, but when Bob did the research, he was shocked. He was surprised because this is a product that was relatively unknown to him. I'm just curious if anybody puts in the messaging, has anybody ever had royal jelly? I went and bought some just to taste it. It's, I don't know, it's kind of nondescript from what I remember. Beeswax and honeycomb. Now, this is an interesting thing. Can you eat beeswax? Should you eat beeswax? Will you come to harm if you eat beeswax? The funny thing is beeswax is one of those things that has a lot of constituents in it. It's made by the wax sheets off the wax mirror of the bottom of a honeybee. But what is it? What does a honeybee eat? Kevin Moment, can you eat bee poop? The excrete of a bee. Can you eat it? I'm not trying to be gross. The answer is yes, because all they eat is nectar and pollen, which are safe for us. What do they make wax out of? They make it out of nectar and pollen, the food that they consume. And so, yes, you can eat wax. It's not harmful for you. And from that perspective, it's mixed a lot with pollen and it's mixed a lot with propolis. When it first comes out, the bees collect together. They get it to 95 degrees to heat the wax so that it's malleable. Then they deposit it down. But as the bees grow inside, they leave cocoons and they poop in the cell. And that shores up the cell. And it's mixed with propolis along the edges and the ridges. And it goes from that white wax to the dark brown. A lot of that has to do with the color of the propolis coming in and the reuse of old comb and walking on it. Imagine if you pour honey on your floor and then you walk around on it, if you've ever harvested it in your kitchen, and it gets all sticky and dirty. Think about the bees walking around on the comb all day, right? So the composition of beeswax is complex because there's all kinds of things that get into the mix, so to speak. You could use beeswax for many different things beyond candles and such. If you mix it and close down burns, you put honey and then you coat it with wax. You can make different creams when you dilute it down, mix it with water. It makes like a slurry and it creates this soft, almost creamy texture to it when you blend it properly. Beeswax helps with cholesterol. How does it work? It absorbs the bad cholesterol in your system. People used to put, and still do, beeswax on their teeth when their teeth hurt. Imagine if you're in the middle of the jungle and you have a toothache and you're trying to solve it and you're breathing, and every time you breathe, that nerve is being exposed. They would put a wad of beeswax on it till they can get it fixed. So there's a bunch of different uses for beeswax and honeycomb. You can consume minor amounts, and we know that, of course, because people eat comb honey. They eat the honey and the wax. If you eat a lot of it, it could be harmful because it doesn't digest as quickly and it could build up in your system. So don't go too crazy. But if you had a little bit here and there, it actually helps your cholesterol and other things. It's not a bad thing for you. Again, I would say in the United States, do people know what comb honey is? When I went to Italy, when I went to Africa, I went to Malawi, I went to Kenya, they had comb honey. They know what that product is. They eat it all the time. It's a standard for them. It's not widespread, but it is something they know about. Ask anybody here about comb honey. It's a complete mystery or unusual product for them. So raw honeycomb, you could just chew it like chewing gum, and you'll get the constituents out of it as your saliva breaks it down. Some people take it as capsules. And occasionally, and you'd be surprised how much, it's used in so many different things in industry as a lubricant, as a wax, as a sealant. And so you're getting it in your food and you don't even know it. This is a picture that Bob found of somebody spreading honeycomb on a turtle shell. It closed off the wound, it stayed put, and the turtle healed and it regrew the shell underneath the honey. And they had a significant time trying to heal this turtle, and someone suggested to them, the veterinary team, to use honey. So they slathered honey on it first, and then they coated it with melted beeswax, and the turtle healed, and they were able to save the turtle because it was not going to survive. This is one that people get squeamish about. A pillarnil. I think that's how that's pronounced. Brood larva. This is something you will find more in, say, Africa, India, Turkey, places like that. They take bee larvae, especially drone, and they grind it down and they make something called an homogenate. They give it like a milkshake. Milkshake made out of honeybees. It is supposed to be superfood. Bee larva therapy, it's a thing. If you see at the bottom, it says the male equivalent of royal jelly. And to that end, it's used for sepsis. It's used for Alzheimer's disease. There's different compounds in the drone brood. Now you can also eat, of course, from beekeeping, regular brood, worker brood of specific age. And certainly there's the popularity of letting wax moth come in and eating wax moth larvae. But the superfood of the three is drone brood, homogenate specifically. This was used and is still used in holistic medicine for children, bedwetting, epilepsy, appetite problems, especially young children. So who knew? Who knew? Has anybody ever heard of this? This is like totally not known in the United States. For adults, it has a different story, especially overseas. Vitality. It's supposed to give you energy. It's supposed to be an anti-aging product, keep you young. And of course, because it's bees and it has bees in beehive environments with propolis and other things, it's antiviral. And we all look at that and go, really? It's going to stop chickenpox? Yes, apparently it does. But we don't know about that here in the United States. This is what most people would associate this with. Potent. This is Viagra. And it is proven that male bee larvae has different compounds that are supposed to make a man virile. And so in other countries, when it's time for weddings and things like that, one of the gifts you might get at a wedding ceremony is this product, homogenate. And I kind of giggle, kind of like Viagra, but for bees. But this is something that's been known again, going back to the times of the Romans and the Greeks and so on. This is a picture I took of a beekeeper in Malawi. Look at the smile on his face. He bit into that and it was running down his face, and he was like, this is the greatest. You know, that's really funny. Now, I have a question for you. Have you ever eaten a drone larva? Have you ever eaten one? On the bottom right-hand corner, you see former state apiarist of New Jersey, Tim Schuler, and he's talking to Sydney, the kid in the blue, and he's giving him a drone brood larva to eat. And we're all like, what are you doing, Tim? And he said, you've never had one of these? Here. And he's handing everybody a larva, and he pops it in his mouth like he's eating a chiclet. He goes, tastes like coconut. And I took one and I'm like, darn, tastes like coconut. It really does. It has like a coconutty flavor to it. So this is your assignment after this. Next time you're in the bee yard and you go to scrape off the top and you see a bunch of bee larvae, I want you to pick one out, close your eyes, and just pop it in your mouth. You will survive, I promise. There are people who harvest this and eat it for food. By the way, bee larva has higher protein value than steak and beef. When you take it in compound, it's a better superfood than the typical foods where we eat. And I have to say that this was my favorite picture of all the photos I took for my trip to Malawi, of him just smiling like that. Beehive therapeutic. This you will see probably as beekeepers if you're posting to or seeing Facebook long enough. How about this? You breathe beehive air. No, this is the next thing. If you're not going to eat the drone larva, then what I want you to do is take the roof off, smoke the bees down, and as you pull it, just lean over and smell the essence of the hive. And know that it is going to do you a world of good, because all the aromatics coming out of the hive are the aerosol equivalents of all these antimicrobial, antibacterial properties that we've been talking about. You breathe it in. And in places in Europe, you can go rent an Airbnb and sit in one of these facilities and sleep on the bees on a bed and wear a CPAP mask that is piped into the beehive and breathe the air. This is especially useful for allergies. And they actually prescribe kids in different markets to go sleep and breathe this air if they have allergies to bees. It's the different version of getting a shot for pollen or whatever. You breathe the air and you get the microparticles and it helps you. So how cool is this? Respiratory therapy. You get it all the time when you open the hive for free. So that's the benefit of being a beekeeper. Now, with that, I want to talk about something that I know, which is hives for heroes, heroes to hives, honeybees for heroes. I work with Mission Belief, the one on the bottom right. They're in Maryland. Friends of mine. I know them through EAS. They practice apitherapy, and specifically, they do beekeeping for veterans, EMS, firefighters, people in duress, people with stress from coming over from overseas. They teach them how to be beekeepers, which is strange because you take them into something that's complicated, difficult, but they don't let them struggle, and it's very therapeutic. And the veteran people from the military services make great beekeepers because they're highly disciplined. And they built this specific facility in Maryland. On the right-hand side are all the training apiaries. They have this huge 1800s barn. It's absolutely gorgeous, completely restored. They do beekeeping courses multiple times a year to teach beekeeping to veterans. And they just built this house. And I'm not sure if you can see, but it has beehives built into the wall. And everything is set up for people in wheelchairs and with disabilities and so on. And over top of this apiary, over top inside this building is a bunk, just like the ones you just saw in the pictures. And you could spend the night and sleep in there. And the rest of it is set up almost like a living room. It has couches and whatever, and you just kind of hang out inside. And then you can work the bees. Have you ever seen these type of hives? They're Aja hives, or also, have you ever seen the movie More Than Honey, where the lady's smoking the cigar? She takes a big draw on the cigar and then blows the smoke in. That's her smoker. These are the type of hives that are in that video. Watch it. It's an astonishingly good video. Slovenian hives is the common area of what they're called. And so this is a form of therapy for them. I'm at Q&A. I want to see if you have any questions about all the stuff we talked about. And then I'll go do the propolis tincture presentation.
Kevin, I have a question for you on things. I have arthritis in my left hand. It's only mild.
Yeah.
I do like to get stung on my arm or close to my hand. It seems to go away, but it comes back. In other words, it doesn't solve it. It's like I think that the inflammatory compensates for the arthritis. I don't know how it works, but it goes away, but it comes back in about a week or so.
Yeah, that's why you hear people who are beekeepers who have arthritis, they do sting themselves on their knuckles, on their fingers, close to wherever their main point is, and they do it in a routine basis. You have to keep doing it. But what you do basically is put a target on that spot where you get the sting for your body to send the rescue crew to that spot to clear up whatever it is, and anything that's going on nearby also benefits from the rush to aid to resolve the bee sting, and that tends to clear up. But when the crisis is over, so is all the hope. So you have to come back and sting it again in order to send the team back in, so to speak. That's the way it was described to me. I'm just going to look in the meeting chat, see if anybody had any questions. How do I access the slides? Okay, you figured that out. I see. Slides are available at bkcorner.org. Just go to the presentations link on the top there.
I have a question about the Apernil. Um, do people preserve it, or is it just you just do it fresh and go for it?
Yeah, as far as I know, you could freeze it. People collect it and freeze it. I'm not super versed in this, but I do know that that's how they typically they leave it whole. And then what happens when you defrost it, the cells have been frozen and they break down a little more. And when you blend it, it becomes a little less. It becomes a little thinner. It's not as thick as if you blend it fresh, but it still apparently has all the goodness in it. Now, some things, for example, subjecting things to heat will kill the microbes, right? We all know that if you heat your honey too high, it kills the goodness out of it. So you need to stay away from heat, but typically cold, as I understand it, doesn't have the same effect. It doesn't kill things. Some stuff it's impactful, but most of it actually stays in place.
Okay. When you talked about poking the pollen out of the frame using chopsticks,
Yeah.
you freeze it first and then you poke. Is that right?
You could do it both ways. Depends on how fresh it is. If it's really fresh, it gets kind of pasty. Then you would freeze it and it becomes hard. And also, if you've ever seen wax in wintertime, it becomes extremely brittle. And, obviously, if you're doing this, you're sacrificing that frame. I don't know about how it is for you guys this time of year, but certainly when I look sometimes in May, June timeframe, frame 2 or frame 3 that sits adjacent to the brood, especially the inside one facing the inside, may be a total frame of pollen. That's the perfect one. Pull that one out. And what I sometimes do, and I've done this, I use wax foundation. I don't use plastic. If you use plastic, it might even be easier that you could freeze it and scrape the plastic, and then you have to separate, pick out all the pellets. They would just break apart, I would assume. But I cut it out with a knife, and then I just cut it in half through the midrib, and I had basically a large section of comb with little holes that I could just take the chopstick and go boop, 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 and I just popped them through.
Thank you. That makes it easy.
Yeah. Have you eaten a chunk of capped worker or drone brood? Yes, actually. Yeah, I did what that beekeeper did. I tried it. It's a little weird. It does feel kind of strange eating it that way. I've only done it once or twice, but I have tried that. Only because he looked like he enjoyed it so much, I wanted to see what it was like. So, lanternfly is what that honey was called. How does a lanternfly, how does a lanternfly collect honey? Uh, I think that's the question. When you go to Europe, when we were in London, we drove around looking for honey, and we were looking specifically for what they call forest honey. Forest honey is honey that is collected by bees, not by collecting nectar, but by exude of aphids. Aphids eat the liquid from the tree and they excrete it out their backside, and it's a sugary substance, and the bees collect it. And because the aphids have processed it, it has different constituents in it. It's supposed to be very healthy, and it has a different kind of flavor, so they say. And so it's highly sought after. Same thing in Europe. They like they like honey that is crystallized and or creamed honey, as we know it. They call our honey runny honey, liquid honey. They don't like that. They like it with crystals in it. And so forest honey is something sought after. And if you go through France and Germany and other places there, you will see that for sale. And then when you think about lanternflies, the lanternfly consumes plant material, tree of heaven. Uh, they eat all kinds of stuff. Tree of heaven is the main product that everybody said they ate, but they decimated everything. But they too excrete the sugars that they consume, and then the bees pick that up. We had a good run here in New Jersey for a couple of years because the lanternflies provided food for our bees. The honey was weird, but the bees liked it during our dearth. We typically have a low period between July, August, maybe early September before goldenrod and other products, asters and such come out. And for a couple of years, we didn't have to feed our bees through the summer. They were fat and happy because they had lanternfly honey. And then we learned how good it was, and we started harvesting it, knowing it was. Really strange. What's weird is the stuff that we collected from the beginning had a really funky, like dirty sock toast to it. We couldn't figure out what to do with it. We said, maybe we'll make mead out of it. It tasted a little bit, had a little undertone of toasted marshmallow. And so we made mead, and the mead was actually not too bad. But over the years that it's been sitting jarred and in buckets, it mellowed and the flavor profile changed. Honey changes over time as it degrades, and actually it tastes better. And so not only is it, you could sell it at a premium if you opt to do that, but it actually tastes okay now compared to it was really funky in the beginning. So if you ever come to the East Coast and somebody offers you a taste of lanternfly, don't shy away. Have a try. Anything else?
Yeah, Kevin.
Was there anything surprising here? Um, Certainly, I think you all learned that it's antimicrobial, antibacterial, and so on, but the wide application of these products holistically was the eye-opening thing to me. You know, who knew you could use it for ulcers and all these other things, bedwetting and such, these different products. Um, and if you want to find out, is this folklore? Is it real? You can go to plus one, PLOS1. You can go to different research outlets and search for apitherapy, bee venom therapy, and so on. You can go to the Apitherapy Society. There is one in the United States. And specifically, there's a big one in Romania. It's big in Romania. It's big in Russia. It's big in certain areas out there. And there's tons of literature and information. There's a beekeeper from Long Island. Her name is Deb Klugers, Klughers. If you if you go to the Beekeeping Today podcast, she was interviewed on there. They had a website with tons and tons of information. They did a track at the Eastern Apiculture Society conference in Ithaca, New York, and just all day long they talked about it. And the amount of information that was available to somebody who wants to dig in on this is astonishing. You could spend days and days looking at all the information. And so I'll ask, I think it was Jeffrey. All this ring a bell to you? Have you dug in and looked at some of that? If you mind answering that. Oh, he froze. I don't know if he's muted or not.
Jeffrey, you're muted.
Okay, there we go. Um, yeah, it's really great to hear all the science and all the facts about all the bee medicines. Yeah, I went to a school in New Mexico, called Hoshindo Healing Arts Institute. And Hoshindo is a practice from Japan, that my teacher learned from, when she was there, and she brought it home and she's taught it to a lot of people out here in the, and it's really amazing because it using the bee stinger, pulling it from the bee, putting the bee to rest, and then using that as a acupuncture needle and various what they call subos or points, was a really great medicine too, to get like things moving in your body, and of course all the other stuff, anti-inflammatory, antiviral, for soft tissue injury and neurological issues. And I learned it primarily because my really close friend had really bad Lyme, and he got cured of his Lyme. And about half the students in the 17-person class, that it was like a 2-year course over time, but half of them were Lyme's that were healed from it. And so, yeah, and propolis was big. That was a big part of it too, was propolis, and then using the bee for, a lot of different ailments.
Yeah. Typically, when you do bee sting therapy, they want to test you. This is just a glimpse, and you can back me up on this.
Yeah.
They'll give you a minor sting, see if you have a reaction. And there's Russians tend to be a little faster. Asians tend to be a little slower if I know the practice properly. And they might sting you on multiple spots down the spine for MS. If you're having a shoulder injury, they might sting you around the shoulder, and you'll come back over subsequent days. Like they'll sting you a couple times in the beginning just to make sure you're not going to have a reaction, and then they'll up the dose and they'll continue to do it and monitor you. And there is a procedure and a method that's taught for those who want to get into it, that you can learn.
Yeah. Yeah, a couple of my classmates went on to starting practices and are they're pretty busy. I left a web link there for one of them
There you go.
he's
Yeah.
teaching Hoshindo and also practicing it in a variety of different locations. And a good friend of mine who actually had Lyme is now traveling all over the country and gets like 25 calls a day from different
Yeah,
parts of the
Lyme's
world.
disease is a massive industry for bee sting therapy. Lyme's,
Yeah.
MS, and rheumatoid arthritis. Those are the three pillars.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's sort of a little bit tenuous though, because it's not fully supported by the medical industry, obviously, and
Right.
yeah, and then there's liability and da 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 da, and so yeah.
The one to read for the common beekeeper is Mraz, the one I
Mhm.
opened with, MRAZ. He teaches you or read his book and he talks about curing people of rheumatoid arthritis, people that were bedridden and got up and walked, kind
Yeah.
of like that classic
Mhm.
amazing healing type thing. You know. So if there's no more questions, I'll go through. I don't want to hold everybody up. Well, let's do the propolis tincture thing. I'll just do one last call on that, and then I don't see anything in chat. So
Kevin, I have one question for you.
yeah,
Been in the news lately quite a bit about uh, curing breast cancer that they found out. I
yeah,
wonder if any of the big pharmaceutical companies are picking that up. It was in the news that it's supposed to kill breast cancer cells.
yeah. They're very clear. They don't clear breast cancer. And the thing about breast cancer that is appealing for this is unlike melanoma or other specific kind of cancers, breast cancer is typically isolated and they can deliver it to the specific tissue without doing damage to the rest of the body. And that's why there's a lot of interest in it. The question lies with how can they get a consistent product when they issue the venom and the chemical compounds are the same? That's what I heard from our cancer doctors. He used to work for the medical part of Bristol Myers Squibb, and uh, the difference in, I don't know if anybody's ever seen one of the machines where they collect venom. It's a plate that you put, and the bees walk across it, and they get zapped. And when they zap, they deposit venom on the plate, and then it dries, and they scrape it off as a powder, typically. And that product is how they typically collect venom. But different bees have different venom from even yellow jackets and bumblebees who sting and such from honeybees. But even honeybee races differ. And so the consistency of from what I know about it, the venom is not always the same. And therefore, how do you make a product out of that? So, and then the other thing is, as I said, is it's great. It'll kill the cancer cells, but it'll also kill the healthy cells. And so, from that perspective, what they're trying to do is paint a target through the proteins onto the cancer cells and then train somehow the venom to go after that and not the healthy cells. And that's a lot of what modern cancer medicine is doing these days. PD-1 is a protease inhibitor. Oh, sorry, that's probably gibberish for most of you, but that is one of the main discoveries in modern cancer is that protease inhibitor basically goes in on the cancer cells and paints it with a target, and it helps your immune system open the cancer cells so that the medicine can go in and kill the actual cancer. They're unlocking that for different kinds of cancers, and now what they have to do is every cancer is a little bit different, and so every one of them requires a certain kind of formula in order to attack pancreatic cancer versus lung cancers, different type, or melanomas, or so on. So at some point, if they can unlock the pattern to deliver bee venom therapy to, say, breast cancer, for example, or HIV, then maybe there'll be a world for that. And the optimistic part of that is AI is advancing the ability to, one of the things, I don't know how much I could talk about this, but companies have thousands of compounds, and you could sit and look at a room full of beakers and never know that it's compound 10,749 is the one out of all of them. And the question is, when you're looking at them all and you're just looking at compounds, how do you know this is the one that does what you need it to do? That's what AI is going to help them to do. They can build profiles and AI will go, based on what you're telling me, it's 10,791. That's the one you need, you know. So we'll see how far they get on that. It's a totally fascinating world of pharma medicine these days, especially with the advances of AI. So, all right, let's talk a little bit about propolis again. Here's some emails from me and Bob if you ever wanted to write us after the course. And again, bkcorner.org is where it is. Propolis tinctures are fun. And you saw how much propolis helps, but you know, the process of making a propolis tincture, which is basically propolis distilled down in an alcohol, is not complicated. You collect it, you freeze it, you pulverize it, you extract it, you filter it, you bottle it. And it sounds like a lot of steps, but it's something anybody could do in your kitchen. So from that perspective, there's two ways to go. You can collect it as you go, scrape the propolis off the frames every time you go through or every time you're scraping air and stuff. Just collect it. I keep a zip top bag in my kit and I collect it all season long. The interesting thing for me on that is that I'm getting propolis from spring all the way through to fall. And so I'm getting a diverse compound versus if I collect it at one period of time with a trap, I'm getting that propolis from that time. And collect it with a trap. Let me explain what that means. We've all seen queen excluders on the right-hand side. The size of it is made so that the queen can't go through. A propolis trap is very similar to that plastic queen excluder, but it's made explicitly to collect propolis. And you can see it has a little bit of a different design. And it's built to put over a colony during the time of, say, winter's approaching when they're sealing everything up. They will see this device and they will stack every one of those, quote unquote, all of them, as many as you get with propolis. So that thing is not a queen excluder, it's a propolis trap. Bees can't pass through that, so you put it on top of the hive. The way you deploy this is you usually put it out in fall. You could put it out in the spring nectar flow, but in fall they want to close up the hive and they go collect a lot of propolis. So typically when your fall flow is underway, now I know in some parts of California the bees work all year long, but when you have the cold nights, so to speak, propolis is perishable, but it's pretty darn durable. And so what I typically do is collect it and leave it in the cart. I think it's fine. I don't know that you want to subject it to super high heat. And if you're really concerned, you could put it in the refrigerator or in the freezer. It doesn't hurt it. But if you leave it for seasons, it will spoil. It's going to degrade like any plant material. So ideally, you want to collect it like through the season, keep it fresh, and then process it all and be done with it. Don't be collecting it for 3 years and 3 years from now go, okay, my propolis. Light, heat, and air wreck it in time. When you go to use it, just look at it. If it smells good, feels good, doesn't have any mold on it, it's probably good. You know what the consistency is. It's on your hive tool, it's on your fingers, it's on your gloves, and so on. So you know what good propolis looks like. What you want to do is cleanse it. And this is a misnomer because some people don't care. If it has wax in it and debris and other parts in it, they're okay with it. But typical people who make propolis tincture go through the steps that I'm going to show you to clean it up. But when you're scraping it off the frames, you could have bits of wood, you could have bee parts in it, and things like that. Detritus is what it's called. So what you want to do is dilute it. You're going to wash it, and I'll show you the process of how to do an extraction. And incidentally, there's an aqueous extraction, which you do with water, and there's an alcohol extraction. To clean your propolis, you do an aqueous, meaning with water. This is how I do it. Good old Chinese food container, clean one. I put the propolis inside and I pour hot water. And I stir with a chopstick. I'm not pouring boiling water. I'm pouring hot enough water that it will kind of melt and warm it to a slurry. You want to just stir it up so you break it all up. When you typically have it, it can have hard bits and soft bits and so on. It'll become a paste, so to speak. And if you've ever processed wax, it's not too dissimilar to processing wax where the debris falls to the bottom and so on. It looks a little like this. The first thing you do is stir it in water, hot water. And it has a little excess water. Then you let it sit and the wax floats to the top and hardens. And that's what that yellow stuff is on the top. It's kind of like if you've ever made chicken broth and the chicken fat floats to the top, it looks like that. And all of the strata of B parts, wood chips that you scraped off a frame, and anything else that you got float to the bottom. And when you're done, it has a hard wax top that you can scrape off. So I do this, take the wax off, and then I run it through again. And what you see is eventually you get all the wax off, and see those little spots? That's what's left after you've run it 2 or 3 processes. And really, you could scrape the gunk off the bottom if there is any, and clear it all of wax. And then what you have? You have propolis, like 99% propolis. Now, one thing to note while you're doing this is the water you're using gets infused with propolis. And that's how some people make a propolis tincture. They make an aqueous solution. So pour the water off. Maybe you want to put it through a coffee filter, your choice. But you could drink that, gargle with it, do whatever. It's propolis water. So don't throw that out. That's what that said, by the way. Reserve the water. It's a aqueous extraction. Some people do not like to drink propolis with alcohol infusion, and that's what they use. They use water. Now, like you're trying to break down pollen sometimes and you can't do it. This is not going to break the propolis down if you're not using alcohol. Now, what I did with that, and you can see how clean it is, after I got the detritus out and got the wax, I just smushed it down to a thin pancake. And I put wax paper in between it and I stuck it in the freezer. And the whole point of this is to grind it up, make a powder of it. It makes it easier to do that. 162 grams of propolis, put it in a Zip-Top bag, throw it in the freezer for a while. I like to double bag it because if you lose track of it and leave it in the, you don't want freezer odor. So protect it because you're going to eat it. Use it later. You just take a hammer and you tap it. It breaks into a superfine powder. You don't even need a hammer. You could just crunch it with your hands after you put it as thin as I did. The hammer does pulverize the chunks. So if you wanted to forego this whole process, clean it, let it dry out, and just use a hammer and punch this stuff down. It'll pulverize it to powder like this. Once you have it, you blend it however you want to blend it. Now, this is another way to do it. You can see this is a mortar and pestle. So you could take the powder and use a mortar and pestle and just grind it up into, or the pancakes that I described earlier, and just grind it to a powder. Some people like these. What is that? Coffee grinder. I don't know that I'm too smitten with this. One, you don't want to use the one that you use for coffee because if you get too hot, it melts the propolis and then the propolis sticks inside and the coffee will take like propolis forever, which may not be a bad thing, but you'll ruin your device. But if you work from propolis that was in the freezer and you whiz it, very quick pulses, and if it starts to get warm, put it back in the freezer and then put it through. But trust me, you can break it up with a hammer or with your fingers, and I would forego this. But there's people out there who tell you this is the way to go. You could use the propolis as a powder. You could take it, like I said, spoonful, a little bit here and there. But to do the extraction breaks it down and it extrapolates the goodness of the propolis, which is why they make a tincture, and it also keeps it shelf stable. Once you put it in alcohol, it lasts forever. So you're going to do an extract. What do you do with the extract? You typically add it with alcohol. Put it in a container, pour the fluid that you're extracting with, alcohol, stir, shake, agitate it, let it break down everything. Then you want to filter it to get the hard powders out and just store it. It looks a little something like this. You could use Boom Everclear. Holy cows, that stuff's strong. Or you could make it with vodka. When you use Everclear, which is like moonshine, that stuff really extrapolates it. But trust me, your tincture is going to have some fire to it. Not a bad thing, but you know, and typically most people would recommend you use a grain alcohol like Everclear. By the way, the guides on how to do these, two of the best ones, one of them is Gary's Honeybee page from Auburn, University of Minnesota. And then you have the value added guide from Italy. Now, this is a Kevin moment. That thing, the FOA guide from Italy, is everything you ever want to know about beekeeping products. Lip balm, everything about extracting honey, making candles. It was made for the entire beekeeping industry, and it's an astonishing, astonishing thing. If you want to know how to make creamed honey, the dice method, it outlines the entire process. It's crazy how good that is. And if you want to know everything there is about making propolis tinctures, that's the book. It's called the FOA Guide from Italy. This is the way that you mix it. You mix it with Everclear. X amount of propolis to X amount of alcohol. And there's percentages. You can make it 10%, 20%, or 30%. As beekeepers, we have all the access to propolis. Some people don't, so they make weaker concentrations. I would make the top one or the 30% one. You have plenty of it. You can do 300 grams of propolis in short order. So you mix grams, 300 of propolis to 700 grams of alcohol, meaning Everclear, 95%. Now, if you're using vodka, it's a different proportion. This is kind of what it looks like. It stirs through and it sits in a slurry and it taints the liquid a different color. Eventually, the liquid becomes darker and darker. Know what it says here. Longer is not more useful, which is strange. I would think the longer you steep something. One of the things I did in COVID was make vanilla extract, and then I made 30 other kinds. That was my COVID passion. Alcohol extracts of peach and banana and orange and you name it. Those typically benefit from longer extractions. This, once you get past a specific thing, especially according to FAO, it doesn't increase the extraction. So a couple weeks. That's all you really need. This is the process I did. That's me pouring water over a filter just to wet the filter. When you wet the filter, it doesn't absorb as much of the alcohol. And then you pour the alcohol through it. I like these car paint filters when you're ready to filter it. This is what it looks like coming out of the jar. You could see I started it on 115, I finished it on 331. I shake it every once in a while. So you put the propolis in the alcohol in the percentages, shake it, leave it sit. Come back the next day, shake it, leave it sit. And then you eventually pour it through that filter that I just showed you. And what happens is it's so sticky, slurry that it clogs your filter. So sometimes this takes forever. Hours and hours and hours. Sometimes what I do is pour it in, let the liquid filter as much as it's going to, and then it sits there and I'm like, okay, it's going to evaporate. So I take it and put a new filter in and pour it into the next filter because all the filter was totally clogged. That's it. Once you pour the liquid through and it all goes through, you're left with the slurry in the container, and the liquid comes out as a brown. You could see the color of it. This one's clear. I left it that way so you could see what it looks like. Just fill your bottles, label them. Ideally, the bottles you're going to use seal tightly. Don't use corks like this thing because that doesn't provide an airtight seal. Some people put them in these jars, which are the spray ones that you could spray in your throat. If you have a sore throat, you spray this in, it clears your sore throat up. It's like chloroseptic, but with propolis. This one has a lid. It's not hard to make this at home, really. It's really super simple. And I've made a lot of it, and so has Bob. And you use it. Now, if you get a cut on your hand, you can just put it on. Right? If you have a cold sore, you put it on. If you have a toothache, you put it on. I labeled all the bottles. I made sure that they were in dark containers so the light can't get in and degrade it. You want to store it in a medicine cabinet or someplace where it's not going to be subject to heat. This is all kinds of links and resources. There's a propolis article from Bee Culture. There's all kinds of things about the qualities of propolis. There's a link to the University of Minnesota Gary's Bee Propolis tincture that I used to build this with, and so on. There's the link to the FAO thing in the top. If anything, that's another homework assignment. You really should go look at that thing. You'll start looking at it and you'll be there for an hour. It's a crazy thing. They had a bee culture, how to process propolis, very similar to this. It used the FAO guide, so on. So now when you squirt this in your throat for a sore throat, you get a shot of alcohol. You can't not take the alcohol out of it, which is why some people do aqueous solution because they don't want their kids getting a shot of alcohol. Stuff is potent because it's Everclear. But, you know, and some will tell you, well, it's the Everclear that clears the... No, it's actually the propolis. It's pretty amazing stuff when you dig in and go look at this information. Just go read the Wikipedia article. That's even more amazing. So this is fun, and I leave you with this. If you look at this, when you have the opportunity in the fall, I left a bottom board, or no, inner cover that had propolis all over it, sitting on my back patio in the sun. When it gets heated up, the bees smell it, and they came in droves and chewed it off. I snapped this photo. I was like, oh my God, they're having a total field day taking the propolis off. So if you ever want to see them reharvest propolis, just take old frames that have propolis all over them and leave them out in the sun in the fall, and you're going to see this all day long. They'll come and take it all off. They'll clean your frames. They'll strip them clean. I promise you. This bottom board or this inner cover was absolutely covered, and they took it all. It was really cool. So there's the website, bkcorner.org. Hopefully you go make some propolis, try a drone larva, pop one in, enjoy that. And, if you have questions down the road, you can send me an email. And remember, this was Bob's presentation. He built the whole thing. He deserves all the credit for the background and research that he did on it. And he loves to talk about this. So if you ever want to send him a note, his email was in there too. He knows this a lot better than I do. And with that, I'll open the floor one more time for any questions and say thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
This is really
I have
fascinating.
a quick. Okay.
You had a question, Hank?
Yeah, I think there's some questions in the chat room.
Okay, let's take a peek. Is there any flavor left in the mark? I don't know what that means. Can you elaborate, Jessica? I'd love to answer your question, but I don't know what you mean. I love that, Rachel. You're making vanilla extracts. Indiri vanilla, INDI.
Oh, I know.
Oh,
Thousands of dollars. I'm in
that
the
is
group.
like crack for vanilla people. We have
Yeah.
Indonesia and Manila and Tonks,
Um,
the names, right?
so Kevin, a mark is what's left after you've made a tincture. It's the raw product that you're getting rid of. So I think that's Jessica's wondering if I'm interpreting it right, if there's still flavor left in that
Oh, yeah.
propolis.
Okay. Sorry. I've never heard the term. Yeah. Yeah. You taste it tastes just like propolis with an alcohol shot. It's like an alcohol shot of propolis. Uh, I don't know. Some people, I've, I've run across beekeepers. There was one in Essex County who made it with rum. They said, if I'm going to taste the alcohol, I better like it. And so they used a rum. You could use kind of any alcohol. Most people use a spirit that has no flavor. Uh, yeah. Yeah, you do. It tastes very rich propolis flavor to it, and it smells like rich propolis. And again, there's another thing that I didn't mention. This was all about apitherapy, but some people make propolis tinctures and then wash the inside of their swarm traps and use it for beekeeping activities. You could use it for that type of stuff too.
And if I'm using it for my own throat, I prefer it with honey.
Yeah. Yeah, people mix pollen. They mix pollen, honey, and propolis, mix it up in a glass. There's a group around here that makes something called Hoot and Holler. It's pollen, propolis, uh, a little bit of honey, and they mix it with cayenne, and they
Ooh.
put it in a container, and you eat it, and they market the product. It's called Hoot and Holler. And when you're feeling sick, you take a shot of that, and they say it cures everything that ails you.
I've had a jar of propolis, collected propolis in the freezer for 5 years. Is it toast at this point?
No, actually, I don't think it is, unless it's freezer burned.
Mhm.
You should be okay.
Okay.
That's why I usually double bag it. If you take it out and it smells like old stale ice cubes, it's probably not
Yeah.
good. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah, I have some in there from that time that you saw those. And I take it to bee meetings. I did BeeCon in New York City and showed them how to make a propolis tincture. And I brought some of the powder that I had, and I opened it and
Mhm.
smelled it. It was like 2 years old, and it was perfectly fine. And
Mhm.
it smells like fresh pollen. or fresh
Yeah.
propolis. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I will say one thing that you may never have heard, because we're Humboldt County. I think that, I've noticed my bees, we have a cannabis farm that's on our property with our hives, and they definitely are collecting the resins from the plants at certain times of year. So that's an interesting compound. It
It
doesn't
is.
have any, like THC values or anything, but they definitely enjoy collecting the resin.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
Mhm.
Not
Huh.
surprised.
I call it bee hash. I mean, like when you're taking it out of on your, hive tools, it's just like that sticky glob. I'm like, it's bee hash.
Yeah, one of the things I didn't talk about is using a propolis trap. What you do with that in the wintertime, we do here, is you set a little block about the size of a domino over the corners of your frames. Frame one up in the corner, one end, and on the other end, and frame 10. And you set the propolis trap over it, and you leave that gap of a domino space. And then you put a gap over top of it, like a shim, and the bees will come and want to close the entire top of the hive, and they'll put propolis all the way through the propolis trap. Then you take the propolis trap off when it's all filled, and you put it in the freezer because propolis sticks to plastic like nobody's business. But when it's in the freezer, then you take the plastic frame or the plastic trap material and you twist it inside of a bag, and all the propolis pops off in theory. Most of the time, you end up sitting there with a little tool and picking it all out through the cracks. And if you want to harvest fresh propolis that's not with detritus and all of that, use a propolis trap. Now, you're only going to get propolis from the period of when you put the trap on to when you take it off. Where if you collect it all year long, like I said, you're getting it from spring to fall. But people who harvest propolis, you can sell propolis. You go on the internet and there's tons of people that will buy that because it's so sought after. And propolis is used in many products in the medical industry. They use it in medicines for teeth. A lot of dental stuff uses propolis, and they make their version of a tincture. They blend it up and use it for different products. It'll be mixed in with something like a toothpaste. If you go and look at, I'll make this up. I don't know it's true, but Sensodyne or something like that, you'll find surprisingly it might have propolis in the back.
I'm just not gonna know till after whether yeah. But the other thing is the procedure that he wants to do.
What is the forage like there this time of year? What kind of, you have specific plants that are native to your region?
Well, actually, the Himalayan blackberry is probably our primary nectar flow this time of year. So the native blackberry blooms earlier.
Yeah, so right now we're into white clover, tulip poplar. We will, the standard plants for us. Dandelions have run their course most of the time, but um, we have a massive amount of the invasive plant. I can't think of what it's called. It has like a silver leaf. I don't know if you have it out there. Now that you try to think of something, it never comes to the surface. Yeah, let me
Yeah.
think. It'll come to me when I stop trying, but that stuff is just in massive abundance this year. It's crazy. And it's a non-native, so people don't like it, but we love it for bees. So
Now, this has been a most excellent presentation. There's so much to digest. I feel confident that, we would have a really good bee social if you ever decide to come and visit Northern, California.
I would love
I-
to.
Well,
Yeah.
great.
I've been all over. I'm speaking at the Pennsylvania State Beekeepers Association 2 day in Collegeville, Pennsylvania. I'm going out to Texas this year. I've spoken at the Western Apiculture Society Northern Lights Conference in Alberta, Canada. I go all over, and I have tons of different, like one of the presentations I've been asked for a lot now is wonky comb. How do you avoid it? And how do bees build wax and all of that stuff? That's very popular. And, uh, so I would, if, this is the funny thing is I teach the Boston Beekeepers Association beginners class.
Yeah.
I do like a 12-week run for them. And I keep saying to them, I want to come to Boston and meet you guys in person. So I would love to, that's one of my favorite pleasures, guilty pleasures of being a beekeeper is going out and meeting other beekeepers. I have a blast. So I'll surely stop and visit if I get my way out to California.
Wonderful. Well, I think that we're pretty good at hospitality.
Yeah.
It is rural here. So
Yeah. I went to, people think of New Jersey like the Jersey Shore. We're not. We live in horse country, horses and farms and soybeans and such. But I went to the Midwest Bee Expo in Wisconsin over the winter. And while I was there, one of the beekeepers I was talking to said, "We have a bee meeting tomorrow. Would you like to come and be a speaker?" So I went to the Rock County Beekeepers Association and did a presentation for them and had a total
Whoa.
blast. That was great. And they're going to send me some cheese, they just told me. Wisconsin cheese. So yeah, I would love to be a guest if that ever happens. I don't know where you're at, but I would be the first one there.
Well, we're on every map.
I'll find you. Yeah.
Eureka. Just look for Eureka,
Eureka.
California.
Okay.
And then
Okay.
you'll find out where we are. It's
Yeah.
pretty far north on the map of California.
I still can't conjure up what that plan is, which is ridiculous.
Well, yeah, I know.
Known as the Redwood Coast or big redwood trees.
Yes.
Oh, really? I would love to come there.
Mm-hmm. Some of the biggest
Well, good.
trees in the world.
I have a farm you
well,
can visit.
Let's work it out then.
I think we can. Yes.
May I ask a question?
Yeah.
Do you hear me okay?
Yes.
Hey, my name's Seth. I met Charlie Mraz back in the early 90s in Middlebury. And all those talk about bee venom and propolis, I had to get myself a piece to chew on. But anyway, one thing I wanted to say about Charlie was he was just an amazing individual. People would move to Middlebury. He never charged anyone for his services. And he's known internationally. But I also wanted to mention about the how you mentioned about testing people for venom for allergic reaction. And I attended the International Apitherapy Conference in Mayfalong University 2009 in northern Thailand. And the Chinese experts who had all been like the professors of acupuncture,
Yeah.
the elders, had all become what their term apipuncturists.
Oh, that's a great term.
They had all given up needles and gone with live bees. And what they did, I volunteered myself and I said, I work bees all the time. I'm stung, but they didn't want to hear it. There was only one translator. But they insisted that I got stung right on inside of my wrist right here for 15 seconds. Then they would scrape out the venom sac and wait 15 minutes. And if the translator was correct, here I am talking with these elderly people, 80s, 90-year-old experts from China that had taught the people to teach acupuncture.
Yeah.
They said they had never encountered allergic reaction. I was pretty stumped by that.
Yeah,
And they used the same meridian on the body as an acupuncturist for apipuncture.
right. Yes, they do.
And
Down the side of the spine.
yeah, I wanted to throw that in. Another thing I wanted to throw in was I attended another conference in Slovenia, Apitherapy, and you mentioned also the HIV. I was in Rwanda, African Bee Conference, and there was a man there, Brian. I can't remember his last name, but I think it's like Golden Bee Honey. You might know of him. He's pretty popular. He's from Uganda, and he sets up people's apiaries and then buys the bee farmers' honey and gives them a good price, all this sort of stuff. But anyway, he was involved in an experiment where they had a bunch of soldiers who were all HIV positive, and the venom, I think they didn't sting them directly. They gave them the extracted from pharmaceutical on the great grid collected. It had killed 100% of the HIV virus.
Yeah.
And you
I
brought
thought
up
there was
earlier
something
about,
in this presentation, and I'm not sure if I skipped past it on that line where when COVID came out, they noticed in China specifically that one of the facets of the population that didn't get COVID in the beginning were beekeepers. And they thought it had to do with the fact that beekeepers got stung and it was abating COVID symptoms in beekeepers in China.
well, maybe it could be because we're really good at isolation.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, that's funny. Autumn olive. Sorry, everybody. That's the product or the plant that's going berserk here. It's everywhere.
The other thing that I thought was particularly interesting was what you said about, I'm originally from New England, and what you said about that lanternfly and that the honey being as good as Manuka, that's amazing, really, to hear this. Yeah. And I have one more story and I'll shut up about this. I learned beekeeping as a kid from my dad. My grandfather was also a beekeeper, and my dad passed away in Dartmouth Hitchcock in '91. He had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. He was in the ICU, and I spent days there. And one night I was leaving, there was a big jug of honey on the countertop in the intensive care unit. And I asked the intern there, I said, what's the deal with the honey? And this, young man was like, oh, we have this heart surgeon and, he uses it in heart surgery. And I'm like, really? He goes, yeah, he soaks the gauze when they do open heart surgery. I guess it has to heal, kind of the wound heals slowly. And he would change the gauze with honey dipped gauze every 4 hours or something. And here it is, this young med students kind of talking like the guy's a quack, and I'm listening to all this, and of course I'm pro B. I said, well, how's his success rate? And the young man was like, oh, he's really successful. And I'm like, well, and I had to tell my dad, even though he was hooked up to a breathing tube and everything, I told him the whole story, and he managed to shake his head like, wow, like. And so, I think there's a lot there. And I have injuries. I have a compacted vertebrae from a bicycle wreck. I have thrown shoulder. I have carpal tunnel. I have a bad knee. Probably other things that I'm forgetting right now. But just like you said about your friend with the venom in the winter, when I don't have my venom, I feel a lot stiffer. And when I first get that venom in the spring, early spring, I don't wear gloves. A lot of times I don't wear any protection. I get a lot of venom. I get stung pretty much every day. I just feel so much better. I'm a total believer and practicer of bee venom and all bee products. And I'm gonna have to try out. I'm gonna have to try out that drone brute stuff. I'll get back to you on that one.
When we were in Africa, I ate it, and it does taste like coconut. And I've eaten it. I've shown that to other beekeepers, when we came back, and it's kind of a surprise. But
well, I knew Asian people that looked at it as a delicacy. They would fry the comb in a pan and then serve it, and that.
Yes. Fried bee larva is a common thing that's outside of the United States, and we don't do it at all. And it's supposed to taste really tasty. You know, typically the encounter that people have with that is when they get a college professor that makes them eat plant materials or bugs, and somebody picks bee larvae as the insect they're going to fry up and eat in the class, and that's when people try it because from a protein standpoint, it's in abundance from a beehive. You can have all the drone larvae you want pretty much in certain periods of the year. So
If you don't mind, I'd like to throw in one more story about the apitherapy.
good.
A beekeeper friend of mine, he's now retired. He lived over in Weed. He got a hold of me. This was years ago. There was an Italian chemist. I can't remember his name. He worked in some profession, I think methane conversion or something, but his true love was analyzing propolis all over the world. And he specifically wanted to come to the Redwood region. So I took him down into southern Humboldt and we gathered some propolis, and he went back to Italy and he sent me an email, and he was very excited because it was chemically different than anything he had found anywhere in the world.
Oh, how cool is that?
And I thought that was pretty cool, you know. So yeah, you really ought to come to see our redwoods and visit this very unique area. And there's a lot to see and do if you love nature, and a lot of good people to visit and so on. So
I'm looking at a map. I see where you're at. Okay. Yeah, I'm game.
have you been to any of these Apimondia conferences and whatnot?
I have not been to that. I wanted to go to this last one, and unfortunately, we had stuff going on here at home. So
Yeah,
I will get to somewhere. I have
I
a
think
lot
you'd
of
really
friends that
like
have
it.
gone to
I
many
mean,
of them.
I really like the international bee community. There's very, like you said about Romania and Russia. It's I saw all kinds of things in Slovenia, Ukraine. It's a very well practiced bee therapy communities. And
There's a podcast, Real Genius, where you can listen to a renowned guy from Romania talk about apitherapy, and that is a hotbed for it. So he's a renowned expert, Romania area.
Yeah.
So
the one thing that I don't hear much from the apitherapists community is that the frequency of the beehive, the sounds, the vibrational sounds, to me are probably one of the most therapeutic aspects of bees.
that's part of that bee house that
Yeah,
they built. That you sleep on the
yeah,
bed and you take the tone and the frequency of the bees and the sound, and it's all part of the experience. Which is why, if you see the pictures of those, you can go look at the bed and breakfast or whatever they have. Not only do you breathe the air and all that stuff, but they have vents where the
yeah.
bees
I've
can't get
seen them.
through, but
I've
you
seen them
sleep
in.
on it and you could hear the bees through the holes in the
I've
grid
seen them in
underneath.
Slovenia and Ukraine. They're really into it, and it's actually popular. But I'm just mean as far as the being in the bee yards when the bees are active. Like when I was a kid, one of the things I've never gotten bored of this or whatever in the evening after a good day of when it's a sunny day and the bees have gathered a lot of nectar, and at night they're fanning, to go out into the bee yard and stand above the bees entrance and smell the essence of whatever they've gathered that day and to hear that sound.
Yeah.
It's a very different sound than middle of the day or what have you. So anyway, I think there is something to that Schumann resonance style frequency of our whole biome and what we equate to. It's like bird songs or water flowing, this sort of thing.
I'm looking at the map, but if I drew a straight line absolutely dead center due west of me, you guys are at the exact same latitude, which is really interesting to me in California.
Hey Seth, I heard you say that the acupuncturists wherever you were gave up acupuncture for apitherapy or apipuncture, right? And
Yes.
when I was doing my studies, the final leg, we were a couple acupuncturists came in and they were kind of watching us go through. And I'll give you a little example. Like, I don't know if you could see it, but it's like, it's not very the visuals on it, but this is anyway, it's a chart of like 66 acupuncture points or apitherapy points for Hoshindo. And so anyway, the acupuncturists who were testing us at the end were like they both also gave it up because when you tap with the bee venom, right? You go home and that spot continues to open up as you sleep, all those acupuncture points, right? So they continue to,
Hmm.
once the needle's out, they continue to work and do the work while you're in bed at home at night, Makes sense why they would choose bees and bee venom. It's like an extension of the needle overnight.
Yeah, yeah.
My
Hmm.
acupuncturist actually gives me tips on like which points to use for my bee stings, and she helps me figure that out. Um, but I will say, one of the things I meant to mention earlier is that an unintended, like, positive side effect is I stung my friend for about 6 months for her Lyme's disease, and the first thing that happened was her brain fog was eliminated, and
Yeah.
she was able to start multitasking again. And then so I was stung my wrist. I was like had a more severe local reaction to bee stings. And after reading Charles Mraz's book, I thought I'm going to see if I can get myself immune so my reactions go away because he writes about that, and I did. It took me 8 weeks and I stung myself 2 to 3 times a week in my wrist where I had pain, and I stopped having a local reaction. But again, like the first side effect was like I just felt this mental clarity that it was I did not know that would happen, and now I definitely enjoy the feeling, and it's a very medicinal thing to do. I stopped stinging myself for a few months and I got that local reaction again when I started back up. So it's not
Mhm.
something that was forever. So that's all.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a point right on top of the head called governing vessel 20. And if people come in and they just like it's all brain fog and they can't think, they can't answer questions that you ask them right in the moment, but give them one of the therapeutic things they would all ask for is a full sting right on top of the head. And sure
Wow.
enough, be like sharp as a tack. So anyway, yeah, it's
One of the things they tell you in the is the last place to sting is around the head because they don't want to have any adverse reactions that affect they typically sting you as far away from the head as possible to start, is what I know.
Well,
yeah,
it's on the top of the head. I must say it's one of the most painful spots.
I would bet.
yeah. But man, does it work. And it was, we'd always do it at the end of the treatment. Yeah. Hmm.
At EAS, they had someone do therapy, and there were people. They would say, if you want to be stung, come in. They lined up and they stung them on the knees, they stung them on the ankles, they stung them on the bottom of their feet. That is a painful area to get stung. But for, hammer toes and things like that, it breaks up the stuff that is locking your toes tight and whatever. I wanted to make a note. If you look in the chat, I mentioned Tom Fiscaldo. He's no longer with us, but there was a recording we made at our Beekeepers Association of him presenting like 12 years ago. And it's just a hoot to listen to him talk. You could listen, he's the kind of guy that you can listen to the whole. He wears his white little lab coat when he did his presentation, and he was just amazing. There's a bunch of other videos there on that channel too that we put in. Uh, that's our local association channel stuff.
Yeah, Janine, you can stop recording. We don't need to record all this.
Well, I have one other thing is my first interaction with bee venom